it well. Played it very, very, very well indeed.
No more slices for you.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
You'll learn.
"36 episodes in, and I still don't know how to introduce episodes of Sliced. But what I will say is kind of the whole point of this podcast when we started it was that we felt maybe there weren't enough podcasts talking about the DP World Tour and not just about betting on the DP World Tour. And I think today's episode is going to be the purest encapsulation of that. None of that PGA Tour rubbish going on. We will reflect briefly on the Procore Championship. Sam's been to the BMW PGA over the weekend, so we've got that to talk about. And we're going to talk categories, cards, status, race to Dubai, all that sort of stuff. But first, Sam, you went to Wentworth. Did you manage a new personal best of more than 4 pints in a 2-hour period?
I didn't, but I did get a lot less wet than I did last year. And I will say part of the problem last year, I don't think I clarified this on the podcast, was the fact that I had looked at the forecast and it said there was going to be 0 rain and then there was absolutely loads of rain. So I went in a t-shirt, which is why I was hiding under the trees. I think someone mentioned the fact that, maybe I should have been a bit braver, but it was purely down to very poor choice of clothes. This time I didn't take any chances. I had a brolly with me and I only needed it for about 15 or 20 minutes. So it was fantastic. And yeah, I mean, obviously I went there first on Tuesday. I was there for most of the day in the media centre. I got to ask Rory a question. I got to ask Justin Rose a question, which was quite exciting. And then I walked a few holes of the course. I saw Tommy Fleetwood playing a practice round with Pep Guardiola, which was not, well, Pep wasn't actually playing, but he was sort of walking around with Tommy. So that was good.
By the way, I think he's singularly to blame for Tommy's poor performance. That's all I'm going to say on it.
I mean, it's no coincidence, is it, that he shows up and suddenly Tommy plays very averagely for a couple of days. Yeah, so it was. But so Tuesday was great, and then obviously I was back on Saturday purely in sort of fan capacity, and it was brilliant. It's such a good day out, and I will say a couple of things. So, firstly, I've found a new good spot, a new best spot. Okay, and I'm going to share this now because I will forget by this time next year, which is if you go to the left of the 5th green, there's sort of like a hill, a sort of slope that goes up. So you can kind of look down the hill and you can see everyone hitting their putts on the 5th hole. And then you can just walk 100 yards up the hill to the 6th tee. And it's almost like people don't know about it. There was only, probably a dozen people behind the tee box. So you can get really close to the players teeing off on 6. And we just did that cycle probably for 5 or 6 groups. And it was great. So that's my new favourite spot. Other highlights include
wonderfully late a piece of advice.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't. To be fair, I didn't discover this until this year. I didn't even know about it last year. So I'm more saying it now because then I can listen back myself next year and say, where was that? That was a good spot, and I can remind myself. But other highlights included Adrian Otegi taking a leak in the trees on 12. I thought it was quite enjoyed that.
Shame on the great nation of the United Arab Emirates.
Well,
I can't believe
I'm
I'm
get away with that.
I was going to say that's another Spaniard having a piss in a big golf tournament this year after was it Masaveo or no, it was Ballester at the Masters, wasn't it? But of course, Adrian Otegi famously is not Spanish. What a mistake to make.
Oh yeah, and he would not get away with that in the UAE. Can I tell you? He'd be locked up.
I don't think you get away with it in Spain either. You're just not acceptable. Come on, use the many toilets provided.
But yeah, the other thing, which is kind of obvious, I suppose, but Rory really does drag an incredible crowd. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, he was obviously a fair bit ahead of the leading groups on Saturday, and because of the fact that he was out on the course, so it felt like relatively few people were following the leading groups. You had people like Hovland and Oberg with an average number of people following them because Rory was drawing so many of them to him. So obviously by the time he'd finished, then they started, the crowds started going towards leading groups, and it got really busy towards the end. But yeah, it was a really good day out. Very much recommend it.
Good. Maybe next year. I'm going to really try and be there next year.
I think you should, Ben. And one last thing before we talk about the actual what happened yesterday. So I saw Razorlight afterwards, and I quite enjoyed it. I thought they were decent. They played all the classics. Now, I was there with my friend Tim, who's a Chelsea fan, and maybe it's because he's a Chelsea fan, but he took exception to the fact that the Razorlight bassist was wearing an Arsenal shirt while performing, specifically a Gyökeres shirt. I wondered if you had a take on this, because my friend Tim seemed to think that he didn't think it was befitting of a band to be wearing a football shirt, and he felt it was like a statement.
This is a remarkable question to be presented with. I would wonder, and I don't want to, make any assessments about the character. I can only imagine you surround yourself with good people, even if from time to time there are Chelsea fans among them. I know you're a big Justin Rose fan. Would he have been offended had that shirt been a Cole Palmer Chelsea shirt? Is my question. And it's difficult. We can't test that, can we? But I think bands should be free to wear pretty much what they like.
Good. I mean,
especially Arsenal shirts,
That was basically my take. There was some suggestion that maybe if he'd have turned up in a sort of, a classic Arsenal player shirt, I don't know, like a Tony Adams or something, would have been better than a Gyökeres shirt. But I don't know. We're getting in the weeds here, but yeah, I'm glad that you agree with me, because I thought it's fine. Wear whatever you like.
Yeah, you've come to the right place here for supporting someone wearing an Arsenal shirt. Was it the new lovely cream one, or is it a red one? Is it traditional red? I'm guessing.
No, it was the cream. Well, yeah, it was sort of. I want to say sort of grey cream sort of color. Yeah, probably
yeah.
Is.
Well, that's just a very stylish T-shirt, regardless of the badge. So yeah, even more full-throated support from me.
Right, let's talk about what happened yesterday. So Alex Noren won in the end. He was in a two-man playoff with Adrien Sadier. I mean, firstly, the first thing to say is I can't believe how much the leaderboard changed from the 36-hole stage. I mean, you legitimately had four of the best players in the world within one of the lead. You had Matsuyama, and then you had Oberg, Hovland, and Rose one back. And then by the end of it, Hovland was fifth. Okay, so we just about hung around. Matsuyama was 13th. Oberg was 20th. Rose was 61st. I mean, you could not see that happening, or at least I couldn't. I mean, Noren and Sadier weren't that far off the pace, but for them to have distanced themselves from those type of players was surprising to me.
Yeah, extraordinary. I think that's a good call out. I think the market said there was something like a 70+% chance that one of those four won it. It's pretty much 4-1 each of the front three, and then Rose a little bit bigger entering the weekend. And it just shows you Wentworth's that sort of course, isn't it? It's still shocking, but if it's going to happen, is sort of Wentworth is the sort of course where you could see it, because there's a big dispersion in scoring, and you get that, especially with the two par fives at the end of the round. You can just a bad day can turn into a very good one, which had happened to Hideki and Hovland earlier in the tournament. But if you're not playing well, they're not easy holes to score on. So we had that a lot yesterday. Actually, it's like the guys who posted early, you think they're going to gradually slide down from their leaderboard position, but they didn't really, because so many people, when it got a bit cooler, and they come to the 18th hole, and pretty much everybody was hitting it in the water. So yeah, it was a really bizarre that those four, all of them didn't play well. Two of them were on my side last week, but there you go. But yeah, there was a lot of change, but we still got a great finish, which Wentworth seems to produce every year.
Yeah, it was a good finish, and I mean, slightly bizarre playoff hole in a way, in that neither of them really hit particularly good shots into the fifth, and both kind of got away with it, especially Noren, I'd say. But I thought Noren's short game was superb the whole of Sunday. I didn't actually see much of him on Saturday in a live capacity, but on Sunday, every time he had a chip, he put it within, it felt like a couple of feet. And then he played that crazy bunker shot on the 14th, which I thought, how did he even got it out of there? Never mind getting it up and down. And that was quite a big moment, I think, in terms of what happened thereafter. A word for Darren Fickart as well, I want to say, because he's 50 years old, and he was at 140 odd in the rankings, and he's turned in a tied fifth finish in obviously a huge event, and now he's well inside, almost certain to have his card for next year. So I always like looking out for the oldies. And the other thing to mention, Ben, the very unusual we see a second cut on the DP World Tour. I mean, I know it was a very chunky, first cut because of just the way it shaped out, but I wasn't expecting that. Did that come as a surprise?
Well, yeah, I suppose so. But then when you see that they sent them out early on Sunday as well, they probably had half an eye on the forecast as well, and there simply wouldn't have been room for all of them. So it's unfortunate if you're one of those who was cut, but in on the other hand, you were probably a bit fortunate to get through to the weekend. Just feels a bit harsh that some of the people who got comfortably through to the weekend but didn't play well on Saturday are the ones who miss out. But just another word on Noren. I mean, you're right about his short game. I think he hold that birdie putt on top of Tyrrell was about 8 feet away, and Noren was about 20 away, and he hold that. Tyrrell missed, and that was the end of Hatton's chances. The up and down on 14, because that was the 13th. So then he comes to the 14th tee in control, plugs it in the bunker, does really well to get it out, and boxes the putt. And on 17, I took my eye off it for a moment. And I know, Sadie missed a good chance on 16, but on 17, when I saw that they were teeing off on 18 still tied, I just briefly assumed that Sadie must have missed on 17 from pretty close range. But no, it was that Noren had holed another big putt. And then his chip, he played a much better chip than Sadie in the playoff. It's a great effort from Sadie, though. I thought, to be 4 of his last 11 rounds, or 12 now, and actually that counts. So that's 5 of his last 12 rounds. He has been in first place at the end of it. For a guy who's in his, they keep talking about him as if he's young on TV coverage. He's not. He's just played 200 events before he won. I think he's 33, which is young to me, but not in the golf world. But for a guy who's taken so long to sort of back up his amateur promise, to now kick on, because we see it a lot where they get the win. Dare I say it's happened with Thomas Dietrich, albeit he's playing a very different schedule, but they get the win and people think that's going to be the start of something even better, and it isn't. It's just, that's just the week they won and they go back to being themselves. But he's taken his game to a new level, and he's going to be on the PGA Tour next year, and that's going to be a challenge for a old-fashioned golfer. It is going to be a challenge, but he can definitely draw inspiration from Matteo Pavon, can't he? Because there are real parallels there. That Pavon got that win in Spain, and it wasn't the end of something; it was actually the start of something. And who knows? Maybe Sadie will go as far as emulating him by winning on the PGA Tour. But it's been a fabulous season.
Yeah, it's a good call out. I mean, for him to have, like you say, you expect a bit of a drop off, don't you, after that first win? Especially if first win has taken a while to come, but. Who would bet against him winning this week in his home event in France? The way he's playing at the moment, we don't know much about the course. We'll obviously come to that shortly. But yeah, he's been playing excellently the last few weeks, and notably so much better yesterday in contention than he was a week ago in Ireland as well, which I think is notable. And really, he's still a couple of putts shaved the edge on the back 9 yesterday, so it could have been a different story. Again,
I think he probably, like, when the dust has settled, I don't think how can he be really disappointed in himself? Because, as you said, the Sunday before and the week before that in Cron, when he led it halfway, and I think he bogeyed like 5 of the first 6 holes or something on Saturday, that was. So it's been edging closer towards seeing it through to 72 holes. And he's obviously done that. But I do think he'd probably feel he should have won in the end. He was brave to go for it in 2 in regulation, but he's left it in a bad place and had a putt effectively to win, and it never really looked like going in. So I think there'll be some regret, and I think that's the sort of question mark you'd have this week. Like, he's been right in the mix every week for a month, and now he's got to go again in France. It wouldn't shock you if he was just not at the races on Thursday. Thought I had something else to say there, but I don't think I do. I suppose we have to answer it. We have to address it, Sam. Alex Noren has won twice, either side of Ryder Cup selections. I know Europe will deal with this in a very level-headed way. There'll be no, and Noren himself said, look, the other guys played better than me, and I just left it too late, and he can't wait to get there. He's a vice-captain, etc. I actually think it's all good for Europe. Like, it's got to be good to have one of your vice-captains come in with the trophy, and they're all patting him on the back. It's got to be. It's better than someone else, Sadie winning, for instance. But do you think, in hindsight, there might be an element of regret that he's not going to be playing from either himself or even, dare I say, Luke Donald?
Yeah, possibly. It's so hard to say, isn't it? I get the sense that Luke is very happy with his team, and everyone's kind of happy with how it's shaken out. I mean, yeah, you could say in hindsight. No, I mean, now I think if you were to pick the team, then Noren would, you'd put Noren in ahead of probably Rasmus Højgaard, wouldn't you? But who's to say that maybe that was the kind of almost an inspiration? I mean, we talked about it last week, didn't we? The fact people who are close to getting picked and don't then end up winning in the coming weeks. So you have to look at it that way as well. Maybe that helped Noren. over last week. So
100%.
but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we can't assume he would have won had he been
No.
selected, because everything thereafter changes, doesn't it? So you're right to point that out. Like, it's a bit too convenient to say, they should have picked him now, because I think it's important probably to give the logical answer to the question. Well, why don't they pick the team today? It's because they're actually already in New York. So it would have been a tight turnaround to go sort of press conference yesterday evening. Like, Luke Donald's got an hour to decide, are you going to take Noren then? And he's got a pick in an hour, and then they're all getting on the plane, and one of them has to just go the other way. That would have been absolutely brutal. So a logistical nightmare couldn't have happened.
Yeah, is there an argument? I don't know. I'm just thinking on the fly here, and I haven't thought this through at all. But is there an argument for Wentworth being a week earlier, so that big event then you can actually make the picks after that event, and then still have the lead in time that you need?
Yeah, I suppose it would have had to be 2 weeks for it to stay on the schedule they're on, and there would be worries about getting the big names after the PGA Tour season and stuff like that. But you're right. I mean, we said about a month ago, didn't we? It is not ideal to have the two strongest events of this period be the ones that come right after the team is named. But obviously, a BMW PGA did count towards the Ryder Cup. It was just last year's. But yeah, in an ideal world, you're absolutely right. It would have taken place at the end of August, and it would have been after that, with all the focus on the DP World Tour, that Luke Donald picked his team. But as you've said, I mean, in the end, we said it loads, haven't we? There just wasn't a spot available. So Rasmus qualified. And
yeah, to be fair, I shouldn't have really called him out.
You know.
I shouldn't have called that out as the person you'd put in instead, because obviously he'd qualified. So it would have been Sepp or Matt Fitzpatrick, maybe. I don't know. But the point is, I think the bottom line is everyone's kind of happy with where the team's at heading to Bethpage. I don't think they have any reason not to be. I mean, some might look at the fact that Rasmus missed the cut this week. I don't know. It's 1 week, isn't it? And their focus will have shifted. And like you say, they're already in New York, and I think they've got practice rounds tomorrow and Wednesday, I believe.
And they're not allowed to leave East Coast time. The Europe are leaving no stone unturned. I do think we're getting to the point where they've gone a bit like, this is getting a bit silly now with the VR headsets. I don't know if you've seen this, I presume. A VR headset that can put you onto that first tee and give you a sense of it's a bit. I'd say this as an Arsenal fan, it's a bit Mikel Arteta, isn't it? Like, it's a bit cringy. Come on.
What I quite like about it is I heard McElroy talking about it, and he's saying that they can basically make the crowds sort of say whatever they want, basically. Just get it as a fan. McElroy said something like, don't hold back. Give us full barrel. And I just trying to think of the sort of things that who's got the job of like trying to make the crowd say like really nasty things to Rory. I mean, you could go many ways with it, and I don't know if he means that. But
it could go horribly wrong, couldn't it? Some poor junior member of the social media Ryder Cup social media team goes, yeah, say this. He said say anything, say this. No, he's walked out. Very bizarre. I don't
quit the team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no good can come of it. We're not going to get to the end of the Ryder Cup, and they're going to win by half a point. They're going to go, those bloody VR headsets, man. Genius move. Oh dear.
Right, I should take us on to the PGA Tour then, the Procore Championship. I will admit, and very unusual I say this, but I don't think I watched a single minute of this. I think purely because my attention was so focused on Wentworth. But yeah, Scotty Scheffler, I mean, we can't really be surprised by it anymore. He won. I mean, it did take Ben Griffin to miss a reasonably short putt, actually, to take it to a playoff. But the main takeaway for me is, last week we were sort of saying, well, is he slightly less likely to win in this type of test? He's not played the course before, etc. And I think it's a mark of how good a competitor he is. That even an event like this, which kind of on paper can't really mean that much to him, really, in the grand scheme of things, that he can still, even after a pretty average first round, pretty mediocre first round by his standards, can then come out and then win the tournament. And you're looking at it and thinking, well, he's just, I don't know what you can say.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? It is phenomenal. He's won 16 of his last 37 tournaments. That is insane. That's an implied odds of 5-4. And with the last twice, he's getting closer to 5-4. But it is incredible his capacity to just turn up and somehow produce his best, even when he'd have every reason to drop off. I can't find the stat. I think it was Jason Sobel. It might have been I tell you, it was
Surely Justin
it was
Ray.
Ryan. Pardon?
Surely
It
Justin
wasn't
Ray.
Justin Ray. It was Ryan Ballingy. He has a stat on how many people have actually beaten Scotty Scheffler this year, and it is a phenomenally small number of people. It's like I'm going to find it here because it's worth saying. Here we go. 23 players have beaten him more than once this year. 23. Like only 4 players have beaten him 4 times or more. That's Fleetwood, Straka, Henley, Rose. Ryder Cup has all of them. 4 players have beaten 3 times. McIlroy's only beaten Scheffler 3 times this year. McIlroy, Spawn, McIntyre, and McNeely. Evidence of how well McNeely's played in some big events, but it's incredible. There's really not a lot we can add to this now. It's just, I saw a tweet that someone said, "Well, when are we going to start comparing him to Tiger? If we're not allowed to compare him to Tiger, when are we?" And I suppose it's probably when he gets the career Grand Slam. And I say when. I choose the word when instead of if. And maybe when he gets to 10 majors?
Yeah.
He's on 4.
I mean, the one question I think he has to answer, and this not for the Tiger comparison things, but I think there is a slight question to answer Ryder Cup. I mean, if you look at how he played last year, sorry, not last year, 2 years ago, you'd say, for someone of his quality, slightly disappointing. And, going to Bethpage, I think there may be some level of pressure for him to, perform on that level. But obviously, again, if you look at the Tiger comparisons, Tiger didn't have a great record in Ryder Cups. And maybe it's because, he is such he very much, his competitive nature is very much kind of, I don't know, against the course or against kind of beating a field, but maybe he can't bring that same level of competitiveness to that type of environment. Obviously, half the time you're playing with someone else as well. I don't know. It's early days to say because he's only played 2 Ryder Cups. But
yeah, it is a question to answer. I mean, some would say, if you, like me, just don't bet on Scotty Scheffler, much to your personal loss, this would be a chance to bet him in the top overall scorer market as 6-1. And I'll be honest, that idea is becoming more and more appealing by the day because I think, well, who's going to beat him? And I think, you're right. You didn't win a single match in Rome, and we have to have that in the back of our minds. But he played with Sam Burns and Brooks Koepka, and Europe got ahead, and it's just that Ryder Cup, and that's always going to be a risk. But I think at Bethpage, he's going to go out with Russell Henley on day one, more sort of first session. They're going to be so hard to beat. And then it becomes like the other thing I think, I'm sorry, I'm getting a week ahead of ourselves here, but the other thing is that usually the US have had historically, you're better off betting on European players in the top overall scorer market because you're going to get more guys who play 5 games. So they can afford to lose one and still win the market. If you only play 3 games, you can't win. So that's the sort of thing you've got to think about. But the actual, the next few players on the US team who are currently playing to the next level are rookies. They're Spawn, Henley, and Griffin, right? Cantlay and Scheffler and Morikawa and these guys who you would have expected to go out there, play 4 matches. Well, they've not shown that they're definitely going to be able to do that. So Scheffler's going to play 5 times. How many times do you think he's going to lose?
Yeah, you may have just sold me on the idea that he's going to have a good Ryder Cup.
I think he will, and I think he's the one reason I still land on the side of the US. To be honest, I think you take him out, goes without saying you make Europe favourites, I suppose. But he's the one thing I can't get away from. I just find it harder and harder to see how you beat him in a game of golf at the moment. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong.
We will definitely talk more about this next week, and we will hopefully have a guest with us. I'm not going to say their name just in case it doesn't happen, but I'm just going to rattle through some other events of last week, Ben. So the Hotel Planet Tour, it was the Open to Portugal. JC Ritchie won for the second time this year, beat David Law by 1, and those two are first and second on the race to Mallorca. Any comments on that one?
No, it was a classy leaderboard. It looked really, really windy and hard, and Ritchie flushes it. So it's, in the end, the way it's played out, it's probably, you look back, it'll be the most obvious Hotel Planet Tour leaderboard of the year in terms of the odds of the top 5.
Right. Okay. The Corn Ferry Tour, which I actually failed to mention last week, it was the Simmons Bank Open. Zach Boshu, I want to say is the correct pronunciation. Zach Boshu won. I think he's someone who had a sort of pretty good at the amateur level, if I'm correct in saying, but hasn't necessarily shone yet on the pro circuit. So be interesting to see what happens to him in the coming months and years. The LPGA. Now this was an interesting one, wasn't it, Ben? The Kroger Queen City Championship, because so Charlie Hull won. I mentioned last week that this is kind of her time of year where she starts winning tournaments, so maybe slightly early, if anything. But it wouldn't have happened had Gino Tissical not four-putted to the 18th green, which is almost unheard of. But yeah, I know you commented on this on Twitter yesterday.
Just phenomenal entertainment, I have to say. Charlie looked like she'd lost it when she went up against the face of the bunker on 17. She made a decent par, but went one down. She just hold a 30-footer to draw level on 16. So it was great entertainment. And then coming to the last, it's almost lost in the aftermath that her drive looked way right. It definitely hit some sort of tree and ended up still scuttling down the fairway like the speed slot, and it went miles. And she hit a really good second shot, left herself a downhill 30-footer for eagle to seemingly keep her hopes alive. But Gino did the hard part. She had like 60 feet and she got it to 4 feet, I would say, and she missed, and the one back was probably 2 feet, and that missed as well, and it didn't even touch the hole. I felt really sorry for her. She's won a lot of tournaments. They said on the broadcast she's got something like 50 odd top 10s on the LPGA Tour in about 80 starts.
Wow,
that is ridiculous. But she's not won a major yet. She looked like she was going to win the Evian and didn't. She clearly should have won this tournament, and it was amazing to watch again. Like Charlie said afterwards, she was shell shocked, and she had 2 feet to win. I have never seen anyone, not even Patrick Cantlay, Brian Harmon, you name it. I've seen nobody take that long over a 2-foot putt, and to be honest, she nearly missed that. But while it was hard on Gino, who can say Charlie doesn't deserve it? Had she finished second, it would have been her 11th runner-up finish since the beginning of the 2023 season, and she'd had 11 in the previous 10 years, however long she'd been on tour. So the last 2 years, she's been inches really from being a prolific winner in some of the biggest tournaments in the game. And hopefully next year's her year. I think between her and Gino, hopefully one of them gets a major next year.
Well, I think it goes to show, doesn't it, Ben? If you're putting yourself in the heat of contention that often, or eventually one is going to go your way, isn't it? And it may take someone, doing something like Tissical did yesterday, but it will happen if you keep being there.
100%. Look, if Tommy hadn't just won the FedEx Cup, what would we be saying? We'd be saying, look, no one's ever done that when he's in second place on the final green, and that's all he needs. And in the end, actually took care of business himself. But you're totally right. That's why they all say it, don't they? I think Rory said it at the Sky Kart last week, actually. Nick Doherty asked him about the eagle putt in Ireland and said, you've had so many of these clutch moments, and sort of laid it on a bit thick, dare I say, of my Parisian holiday friend. And Rory said, the reason I've had moments like that is because I've had more moments where I've missed. And you just have to keep trying. And it's a great lesson for anybody, whether you like golf or not.
Yeah. Other three events, very quickly, rattle through. The Ladies European Tour, it was the VP Bank Swiss Ladies Open, which Alice Hewson won by 5. The Asian Tour was the Shinhan Donghai Open. Kazuki Higa won that one. Sunshine Tour, we don't tend to mention, but I just did want to mention this one. It's Vodacom Origins of Golf, and Hayden Porteous won. It was only a 36-hole event, but kind of notable because Hayden Porteous is a 2-time DP World Tour winner, and he's one of those players who I think what's happened to him. He really sort of dropped off the planet, and so maybe he's turning things around slowly but surely.
I hope so. I'm glad you put that on there because I hadn't noticed that he'd won, and I sort of went, "All right, are you sure?" I'm sure it's correct. But yeah, he's been in a really dark place with his game. So yeah, hopefully onwards and upwards.
Yeah. Right, in the news, Ben, there's not a ton to talk about. There's one big thing, which the DP World Tour schedule for 2026 was confirmed last week, as well as some category changes. I'm going to hand over to you to kind of surmise both of those things, if you can.
Great, thank you. I have put a lot of notes down, so you've probably got the impression that I really wanted to talk about this. And I think our core audience will like this, right? I hope. So let's do the schedule first, right? No Leopard Creek in November, December. Course is closed. It'll be back next year. Don't worry. So they're going to Royal Johannesburg, which I'm sure you remember very fondly from the Joburg Open when they had the really easy course and the slightly harder course, and you had to shoot 9 under at one of them, else you were kind of beaten. Richard Sterney always won. I have memories of that. Chart van der Walt always popped up, didn't he? So that'd be nice to see that back again. Could be a bigger field because they might use the East and West courses, I guess. Very, very briefly on schedule, I'm going to rattle through this. They have an unconfirmed Middle East event we assume is Qatar. Stellenbosch is the new USA Open host. Thriston Lawrence has won a Sunshine Tour event there, but yeah, it's never hosted it before. There's some TBCs for venues in Kenya, India, Turkey, and Korea. I suspect all 4 will be back at the courses they were this year. El Prat is back on the schedule in, I think, May. That's significant because it's another event in Spain, in Catalunya, which is great. It's also significant, I think, because the last 3 winners of that tournament are people who hit about 250 yards. So maybe that's one for the sort of older, veteran short hitter. Maybe your man, Darren Fickar, is going to win whatever they've called that tournament. And the final 3 notes, the Nexo's gone. Bye-bye. See ya. Thank you for coming. Hopefully it isn't going to fill that slot. Denmark is 1 week earlier in the schedule. There's a blank space after it. I'd love it if they were going somewhere like Norway. Why not? Like Victor, I know they're not in Norway on the Hotel Planet Tour this year, but why not go to Norway? Why not go to Poland? Hopefully that slot is filled with some new emerging golf nation. Sweden, Sweden's not got an event at the moment, so why are they not? Hopefully that's what happens with that. Yeah. Corrales Punta Cana replaces Barracuda, and that is my run through the schedule. Told you that'd be fun. That was fun.
I mean, I'm going to hand straight back over to you to summarize the category changes as well, if that's all right.
Well, I'm going to summarize them. I'm going to ask you what you think about it. Let's reverse roles here. So the category changes. The top 110 on the Race to Dubai is now down to 100 as of next year. So that's significant in itself. Now, regulars will know that it's never 110. This year it's going to be 113. That's because they have in-addition players. So for various different reasons, they have players who they remove from the calculation. They're not going to do that anymore. So the 100 is the 100. So this time next year, in theory, when we're talking about who's on the bubble, it's going to be 100 cut off. Doesn't matter who's above. Doesn't matter that Joaquin Neiman's one of the guys above. There's going to be 100 cards. Okay. Yeah. That's the theory. We'll see. There are 2 little asterisks and something to do with amateur pathways.
So this explains why, because I was trying to figure out why it was 113, and I noticed this week it's 114, and it's because there's 4 live players who are in that top. What would be the top 110?
Yeah, not necessarily always live. They could be very, because obviously for some of those guys, they're valid. They're still DP World Tour members. So the ones that paid their fines and served their suspensions and whatever. There are other things like I think last year, for instance, Rasmus Nergaard Peterson was on it as a non-member who'd earned enough points. Blah blah. Robin Williams was on it for some reason. There are kind of some caveats, and they do a nice little color-coded system. If you want to get into it on the website, and you can learn a little bit more about it. So the next batch, the next 10 players are going to get category 18. So they'll still get a card, but it will be below Q School, and that's quite significant. So Q School is being elevated up the priority list. The payoff for that is that Q School is going down from top 20 in ties to top 15 in ties. Now, because they have the ties, that doesn't mean the number definitely reduces, because if you've got a 20-way tie for 15, well, congratulations, you've all got a card. But just to give an example of what it's been like, I just picked out Tadeusz Tetak, who got one of the final cards last year. He has played 12 DP World Tour events, and we're in the middle of September. And I guarantee you he's played wherever he could. And they're all for really insignificant number of points. So he's not only playing less often, he's playing for fewer points. So for someone like him to keep his card,
he's got to do a hell of a lot.
Jacob Skov-Olesen has done fantastically because he got the last card, I think. And there's a reshuffle, and he's sort of, it's not reshuffle because of his Race to Dubai position. It's sort of self-perpetuating. He gets more opportunities now, but he didn't get in the BMW PGA. So that's great for him. And the other thing I just wanted to finish off with is that also, in concert with that, the Hotel Planet Tour is down from 20 to 15. And I do think whenever they make these changes mid-season, if you're on the Hotel Planet Tour right now and you're in 23rd or whatever, you want to get your act together and get that card, because if you're still there next year, it's top 15 only. And obviously there are no ties there. 16th place won't get one. So especially with the other stuff, I know Lucas Bjerregaard, as you called out, got one last year because of, I think, Robin Williams or Rasmus Nygaard Peterson or someone.
It was Nygaard Peterson and John Parry, I think.
That's right. Battlefield promotion. We could get some Battlefield promotion. We got JC Ritchie and David Law both on 2 with a handful of events left. So, wouldn't be a big... And Renato Paratore, actually. So any one of those wins, then we do get Battlefield again. But yeah, basically what they're doing is they're trying to reduce the membership. They're trying to make it, I don't think they'll have done it because of the things we've said on Slice, Sam, I'll be honest. But there's been a general sense that there are too many members, too many people who can't plan a schedule, too many confusing little caveats, and they're trying to simplify it, and I think that's good.
I think they're doing the same that the PGA Tour have done, really, in that they're simplifying for one, and they're also trying to make sure that having a card actually means something. It means having a card. So you're going to play all of these events. Like you say, you can plan a schedule, but also it's not this sort of random thing where you may get in, you may not get in. It's a good thing. I think it's probably easy to see. Okay, they're restricting playing opportunities, but I don't think it's like that. I think probably they were too inflated to start with, and they've been brought down probably to where they should be, so that people can plan their schedules, and it kind of makes sense.
You always have a cutoff, don't you? There's always going to be a cutoff somewhere, whatever you draw it. And the thing is that it gets bloated by things like you can't plan for everybody who wants to play on a career money exemption. They can't plan for Brooks Koepka coming over and playing on 4 sponsors invites in a row. They can't plan for whatever it may be, people choosing to play here instead of using their PGA Tour card more. It's really hard. So I think you've got to be as lean as possible while still giving people the chance to make a career for themselves. And it is cruel, but it's professional sport. It's not. I'm not really one who thinks let's try and get as many people a chance as possible because one of them's going to make it. There's got to be a line, right? And anything that makes it clearer. And let's not forget about the fan in this. I think too many people who love golf, who want to be across the info, are put off because it's just overwhelming and confusing. And these little changes can maybe help with that.
Yeah, the only other thing to add to this, Ben, is that there's been no mention at all of Category 12, which is obviously something that we've talked about in recent weeks. So there's no mention of that in the announcement at all. So presumably that will come at some point. I doubt that it's been got rid of completely. I suspect that they're still working through what exactly it's going to look like, and they're not publishing that until they're sure. But we'll obviously monitor that, and as soon as it's announced, we will talk about it on here. I'm going to take us on just to talk quickly before we go on to this week. Let's talk quickly about the race race to Dubai, but particularly the race for the 10 PGA Tour cards, because there's been a couple of changes. Alex Noren is up to 3rd, which is a notable move. He's moved inside, and Rasmus Nygaard Peterson is back in the 10th spot at the moment, which means that Keita Nakajima is out at the moment, and Dan Brown is out. But obviously, there's plenty of time for that to change.
This is one thing I want to mention on this is that I've not checked. I'm going to check now live on air whether we've said before that the DP World Tour seem to have to manually move the PGA Tour logo, and they have done it this morning. So it's on Alex Noren's name now. Now, Alex Noren is ranked 107th in FedEx Cup points, right? And I've had a bit of a discussion with Bob Harrig, chipped in, which was great. He's so sort of clued up on everything that's going on. Obviously, it's his job, but I'm willing to share that information with idiots like us. Rob Ops as well, a Twitter account. I can't recommend him enough. Really gets into the weeds of golf and membership and everything. We were discussing exactly what happens here if he goes over to the PGA Tour, let's say in October. Let's say he plays the Zozo and earns his card. In theory, that will therefore knock Nakajima or whoever is in the 11th back in, and he won't need this. The question I still have in my mind is, well, it could be ambiguous because he could be like 92nd in points when the DP World Tour season ends and almost certain to get his card but not officially have it. But I think they do it retrospectively. So if they get to the end of the DP World Tour season scenario, Noren's got his card via the Race to Dubai, which will happen now. He's safe.
Yep.
Whoever's in 11th might then be watching the RSM Classic, hoping Alex Noren gets 30 FedEx Cup points and earns them a PGA Tour card. great theatre if you're a really sad person like me.
I mean, this scenario is not going to happen because Alex Noren is not going to play the RSM Classic. I
Why
mean,
not?
he may play, like you say, he may play the Zozo possibly, but I can't see him going over for a run-of-the-mill PGA Tour event between now and
I
Christmas.
don't know. He nearly won the Bermuda Championship a couple of years ago. I'm just saying. I
You're
don't
in a
know when the
different time.
dates are. I mean, obviously he's going to be in Dubai for the DP World Tour Championship, isn't he? So,
Yeah.
but they might even be waiting, even if Noren isn't playing. I do think he'll play more PGA Tour events before the end of the year. If he's like on the bubble, which is likely, they might still be waiting to find out whether he gets the top 100. That's the key thing, whether he plays or not, because that will affect how many cards there are via the race to Dubai. Yeah.
Well, we're officially on Alex Noren watch over the next few months. I'm going to put it out there and say I don't think he's going to play another event on US soil this calendar year.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's interesting because he'll definitely play the Dunhill Links. But I was sort of thinking, where else is he going to play? Well, he'll play the 2 DP World Tour events that end the year, but he missed a lot of the season. I don't see why he wouldn't go and have a crack at the PGA Tour because he's not won there yet. You know, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know which events, but I'm going to say he's at the RSM Classic.
Do you have a wager on this, Ben?
No.
Do we have a live wager?
Absolutely not. No. I'll tell you what, if he's not at the RSM Classic, you can have 20 highest bidder points. There you go.
Wow, I'm going to need them. Okay, great. Okay, quickly, I'll mention the on the card keeping bubble because there are also some changes there. So Fickhart, I mentioned earlier on, has moved inside. Harry Hall has moved inside. That's kind of an interesting one because he's not going to be playing on a DP World Tour, so it sort of doesn't really mean anything. But he is now inside. Adrian Otaeguy's moved inside. Tom Vaillant and Antoine Rosner, they've all moved inside. And yeah, there's been some other changes. It does mean that certain players have moved out, including Gumberg, Ravetto, Cockerill, and Tapio Pulkkinen. Although I think you're suggesting that Gumberg and Ravetto might be exempt because obviously they're winners in the last year. But you're not sure.
Certainly Ravetto, but I think both of them.
Yeah. So a few changes. Guido Migliozzi is up to 88th. He's been playing well lately, so he's made some moves. Minwoo Lee is up to 120th. So yeah,
Minwoo's semi-interesting one because he hasn't, people just think, he's one of those who can come and, sure, if he's in the top 50 in the world and he's, they get into most of these events if they want to play them, but he has not got any fallback. He does not have, he's a bit like Bezaden, who's been in the last few years. He will lose his DP World Tour card unless he plays well. He's playing in France this week. I'm sure he wants to keep it. But at the moment, he's got a bit of work to do.
Yep.
And to reach those playoffs, by the way, at the end of the year, like top 60, top 50, that's another thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Right, World of Golf this week. So, DP World Tour is the Open de France. It is not at its usual location of Le Golf National. It is at fill the blank.
Saint-Nom-la-Bretèche.
There we go. Now, you've made a note here that it's 1 year only while Paris Underground work is done. We're not talking about the underground in the sort of, the sense of sort of tube network.
Yeah.
Really?
They're expanding the tube network into the greater Paris regions. And,
right,
to do with the Paris, Le Métro, as I believe they call it.
Okay, right. Interesting. Well, have we got much info on this course, Ben, as yet?
Well, the Sevi Trophy used to be here, so it's quite familiar if you remember watching that sort of 15 years ago almost now. They used to play the Trophy Longcombe around the turn of the century. It's the perfect place to go when they needed somewhere to go because it's tournament ready. It's known to have some of the fastest greens in France. It's quite an exclusive golf club. Victor Dubuisson's a member, I believe, but he's not playing. I know Alex Levy was trying to get him to play, wasn't he? And he said no. It'll be good. I don't think they'll find it that difficult. It's quite short, but I think we should say here, Le Golf National's not actually been that difficult the last few years. In the autumn when it's softer, it's not that hard. So let's not get carried away with this is no good compared to LGN because. It's just 1 year.
Another member, Ben, I noticed when I was researching today, and I have a little story here because I've got some confusion about this. So, Robin Skiot-Siegrist, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, lefty, as you'll know, he is another member, but it doesn't look like he's going to make it in the field. He's something like 10th alternate, 12th alternate.
He's third alternate now, Sam.
Oh, he's third now. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a chance, and obviously you'll have to decide where to go because the Hotel Planetour's in Italy.
Yeah,
I suspect, given that Frank Kennedy's ahead of him, he might be in Italy waiting, and Santiago Tarry, they're all Hotel Planetour players. I suspect, the other two
make
should
it in.
let Robin be first alternate, shouldn't they?
Yeah. Well, so my confusion, Ben, is when I was there on Tuesday at Wentworth and I was there on the range, I saw a left-handed golfer with a France bag. Like we saw when we were at the Belfry, we saw someone with one of those France little stand bags, and I saw a left-handed golfer with one of those France bags, and I couldn't think of another one. I thought it must have been him, but he wasn't on the entry list for Wentworth, so I thought, can this be possible?
Interesting. Well, given that, no chance of getting a game at Wentworth. I'm trying to think, what day was this? Tuesday?
This was Tuesday, yeah.
He played in the Open de Portugal on the Hotel Planet Tour, so I don't know.
I mean, Connected, are you allowed, can you just show up to, a sort of practice round day?
You have to be somewhere on the entry list. By the way, he's a former winner of the Grand Prix, whatever it's called. What's this course called again? Grand Prix Saint-Nom-le-Bretèche. He's won an amateur tournament here, but he's got to get in the field first, right?
Let's look out for him. I hope he makes it. I hope you make it, Robin.
So has Fred Lacroix, by the way. For those interested, he's from Paris. He's won at this course as an amateur, but he's not playing very well.
Okay, that's a good call out. Right, Hotel Planner. It is the Italian Challenge Open. Ben, you'll do a little preview for us on the Slice newsletter.
Yeah, rubbish last week, but we won the week before. We will try again. Chelly's won there as an amateur, so there's two names I've given you that have won at these golf courses before, but all of the Italians know this course well because it's where the golf national squad train.
Okay.
Apart from the ones who are not good enough to get in that squad, obviously.
But naturally, yeah. Then the other events that are happening is the Corn Ferry Tour. It's the Nationwide Children's Hospital Championship. The LPGA Tour is the Walmart Northwest Arkansas Championship. The Ladies European Tour is the La Sella Open in Spain. And the Asian Tour is the Yangda Tournament Players Championship in Taiwan. Player tracker quickly, Ben. Comments on Angel and Elvis last week?
Well, they both did what they're brilliant at really well. So Angel Ayora, I believe, in the end ranked 5th in strokes gained off the tee, so more imperious driving. And Elvis was, I think, 1st in strokes gained around the green. So again, evidence of his brilliant short game. So it's nice that their strengths are firing. Yeah, not a lot else to say. Angel Ayora just had some absurdly bad around the green figures, and he lost 7 strokes around the green. If he gained 1 stroke around the green, I know already this is absurd. But in 2 of his previous 3 starts, top 5 around the green. So let's just say he did everything else the same, but his short game was good. He could have finished in the top 5, and he finished 50th. So I'm just saying that if there is one department where I just sort of go, he had a bad, he was short-sided and all that, it just didn't work for him around the greens, that would be the one. Unfortunately, bookmakers don't appear to be taking any chances with him. So,
Indeed. Right, quick fantasy update. So, changes on our league. So, first is Michael Atkin, second is David McFarlane, and third is Alan Horrell. Now, Ben, who are your 6 for this week?
I don't have any, Sam. I completely forgot. And I had to go to a meeting that has delayed this podcast. It's not gone well my afternoon. So I could lie and just say the first 6 players on this list, and that's what I'm going to do. Connors, Fox, Dietrich, Minwoo Lee, Harry Hall, and Michael Kim. I'm going to make Corey Connors my captain. There you go.
Wow, this is the level of,
I've disgraced myself
that we expect from you, Ben, when it comes to our fantasy game.
Yeah, it's gone badly.
Right, well, I'll give my slightly more qualified picks. So I'm making Adrien Sadier my captain because he's just playing so well at the moment, and I just think it makes sense. Thomas Dietrich I like. I just think that this sort of drop in grade, and it should be the type of course that he would like, kind of classic kind of Parkland course. Martin Couvre and Antoine Rosner I expect to do well on home soil. Migliozzi I'm putting in again because he interestingly led the field in strokes gained approach at Wentworth. I feel like he could win between now and the end of the season. I mean, there's not many chances left, but he's playing very well. And lastly, my friend Adrian Otegui, because he was very solid tee to green. He's generally pretty solid tee to green, but he was good at Wentworth. And again, I think this course might suit.
You're 43rd, by the way, Sam, so fantastic.
I know, I've slipped the last couple of weeks, so I need to turn things around myself.
It's the highest bidder. It's the highest bidder. It's the highest bidder. It's the highest bidder.
one week I'm going to mime it on my keyboard in the background that I can't play.
Well, I will say, Ben, that in the end there was retrospectively 5 points were added to your score for last week because I got the rules wrong. So yeah, you are now on 71 points because we thought you failed.
I'd just like to say I think that was one of my best, highest bit of performances so far, and that's not saying much, but I'm proud of that one. Yeah, I was a bit proud.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, and it deserved the point. So I'm kind of glad you got. I'm not glad you got them, but I'm glad that justice was done. Right, our question for this week. Right, here we go. Across the 2008 and 2010 matches, Europe fielded a total of 10 rookies, 4 in 2008 and 6 in 2010. How many can you name?
Is it me or you?
It's me to go first, and I'm not confident on this. I mean, I'll go 5.
I'll go 6. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, yeah.
So,
yeah, go on.
2010. We'll start with 2010 because I feel like then I can just top up with Ollie Wilson if I have to. 2010, we said, didn't we? Okay.
Yes,
Ross Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
This was Europe, right?
Yes, Europe. Yeah.
Francesco and Eduardo Molinari. Rory McIlroy. I want to say Miguel Angel Jimenez, but I don't think I need to take the risk. How many have I got named? 6?
6, yeah.
So then 2008, definitely Ollie Wilson. I feel like Soren Hansen played. So I'm going to say that, I think, and that will be my 6. But I'm thinking Miguel was a rookie.
Yeah, you had Soren Hansen, Ollie Wilson. They were definitely in 2008. Justin Rose, incidentally, as well. 2010.
Fisher, 2 Molinaris and McIlroy. I mean, they're definitely right.
Well, no, you've got your 6. Yeah.
Well your tone was terrible there. You were a beaten man.
I mean, I probably am. At this stage, I probably am a beaten man. But
let's face it, Sam. That one was right in my wheelhouse.
That very much was in your wheelhouse.
I think I'd decided whatever you bid, I was going to go one higher. Not to make you feel worse, because you could have said 8, but and I would have probably lost. But yeah.
Thank you to Inside Golf, by the way, for that category. And I'm quite looking forward to getting out of Ryder Cup categories because I feel like I'm onto a loser there.
One more week to go.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that remains to be said here, Ben, is that we've got a very, very special guest coming on Wednesday. Well, in fact, we've already recorded the episode, but the episode will be released on Wednesday, and it is, Ben?
It is Sir Nick Faldo, Knight of the Realm. Should be able to use him to get on a bus. I have to say, it is a real thrill to. I said this to him, and I'm afraid I've not listened back to the recording yet, and I may never because I fear I disgrace myself personally and journalistically with my fanboy introduction to that. I should have been far more professional, and the fact that Sir Nick, bless him, seemed totally unmoved by my touching story of childhood. He seemed a bit embarrassed, actually, not unmoved. I wish I could do that bit again, but honestly, to the idea that I'd be along with yourself interviewing one of the greatest golfers to have walked this planet, it's great. It's a dream, and he was he is a genuine character, and it was quite hard in some ways because he actually had so much to say, didn't he? And he was doing it from a long way from here, and you get a bit of a delay and stuff. So it was a good test of our skills, I think. But I think we passed it. And regardless, I'll always be able to say that I interviewed Sir Nick Faldo. Haven't told my mum yet, actually. I might WhatsApp her in a minute. Yeah, it was really cool.
It was one of those things, I think, when we started up Sliced, I probably didn't think would happen, or certainly wouldn't happen that quickly, that we'd have Sir Nick actual Faldo on our podcast. So yeah, I think that's a mark of how far we've come in 8 months. But yeah, it was great to talk to him. And yeah, I mean, honestly, there was a lot of things that we had on our list to ask him that we didn't get around to because he gave very long answers. But I suppose that's what you want from someone like Nick Faldo. You want him to sort of just keep going on what he's feeling and You know, that's what he did. So
Totally.
anyway.
I mean, he was my favourite golfer growing up because he was English. And I've said this before on here, I think when I was like 10 years old, all I cared about is the English flag or the Scottish flag, whatever, Irish, Great Britain and Ireland. That's who I wanted to succeed. Gordon, Sherry, I'm with you, pal, right? That's all I cared about. And he was the best. And I loved that he was beating these American golfers and these Australian golfers in particular. But I also genuinely, and I've said this before we interviewed him, I genuinely loved him as a broadcaster. I know he doesn't do much anymore, but I thought his Masters commentary in April was an absolute tour de force, by someone uniquely positioned to comment on what Rory McIlroy was feeling. And I think he's brilliant. He's got a lot of interesting things to say, and I hope some of that comes across in the interview. And I'll say as well, you've said, testament to how far we've come. I will say, testament to the bargaining power of your songwriting skills and your networking ability. You are far more inclined to ask someone something than I am. So this is on you. Well done, and thank you.
Basically, you're saying I have no shame, and you're absolutely right.
Less shame than me, certainly.
Yeah.
We established that with how you said you'd have dealt with the Nick Doherty situation. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, anyway, we sincerely hope that you tune in to our episode on Wednesday because, it's a treat to have him on as a guest, and there will be more guests to come. And as ever, thank you very much for listening to Sliced.